After 24 years overseeing infrastructure, the new COO called me outdated and let me go. "We need agile thinkers," he boasted. The concrete screamed before it gave way. I was standing in my kitchen, coffee mug halfway to my lips, when the breaking news alert lit up my phone. "Critical infrastructure failure, bridge under inspection collapses." The footage showed twisted metal and crumbling concrete where the Millbrook Bridge once stood. My bridge, the one I'd warned them about. My name is Jeremy Rovens, and for 24 years I was the backbone of Rodex Technologies' infrastructure division. I started as a junior engineer straight out of college, back when we still used slide rules alongside early CAD systems. I'd worked my way up through every level of the company, learning not just the technical specifications, but the soul of each project we touched. Rodex Technologies wasn't just another engineering firm. We were the trusted name behind half the major infrastructure projects in the tri-state area. Bridges, tunnels, water treatment facilities. If it was critical and complex, we built it. I'd overseen the construction of 17 major bridges, including the Millbrook Bridge, that connected downtown to the industrial district. Over the years, I'd developed what my colleagues called Jeremy's sixth sense, an intuitive understanding of how structures aged, where stress concentrated, and when maintenance schedules needed adjustment. It wasn't magic. It was decades of experience reading the subtle signs that textbooks couldn't teach, the way certain joints weathered, how environmental factors affected different materials, the politics of budget cycles and their impact on safety protocols. I'd mentored dozens of young engineers, watched them grow from eager graduates into seasoned professionals. My team respected me not because I demanded it, but because I'd earned it through countless late nights, emergency inspections, and the kind of meticulous attention to detail that kept people safe. Safety wasn't just a department mandate for me, it was personal. Every bridge I signed off on carried my reputation and, more importantly, carried real people with real lives. Everything changed when Marcus Chen became our new COO 6 months ago. Fresh from a tech startup, he arrived with buzzwords and a mandate to modernize our operations. Our first one-on-one meeting should have been a warning sign. "Jeremy, right?" he said, not looking up from his laptop. "I've been reviewing your division's metrics. Your inspection schedules are conservative." "They're thorough," I corrected. "These structures have been in service for decades. They need efficiency." His fingers never stopped typing. "We're implementing new protocols, predictive analytics, IoT sensors, machine learning algorithms. The future isn't about gut feelings and visual inspections." I felt my jaw tighten. Experience isn't a gut feeling. It's pattern recognition built over decades. That's exactly the problem. He finally looked at me, his expression pitying. "You're thinking like it's 1999. We need agile thinkers, people who can adapt to modern methodologies." The meeting ended with him assigning me to work with his new efficiency consultant, a 20-something with an MBA who'd never set foot on a construction site. 3 weeks later, they'd slashed our inspection budget by 40% and implemented an AI-driven maintenance scheduling system that treated bridges like software updates. When I pushed back, citing specific concerns about the Millbrook Bridge's load-bearing capacity, Marcus called me into his office one final time. "Jeremy, you've had a good run, but it's time to pass the torch. We're restructuring the division, and frankly, your approach doesn't align with our vision. We need agile thinkers, not people who actually know what they're doing." The words slipped out before I could stop them. He smiled that corporate smile. "We'll handle the transition. Clean out your office by Friday." I should have walked away, should have taken my severance package and enjoyed early retirement, but something gnawed at me. The Millbrook Bridge wasn't just another project. It was one of our earliest designs, built when environmental impact studies were suggestions rather than requirements. The foundation had always been questionable, and the winter freeze-thaw cycles had been particularly harsh recently. I'd flagged it for comprehensive inspection 3 times in the past year. Each time, Marcus's new system had deferred it, categorizing it as low priority, based on traffic volume and recent surface maintenance. But algorithms couldn't see what I'd seen during my last unofficial visit. hairline cracks in the support columns, expansion joints showing more movement than specifications allowed, and corrosion patterns that suggested water infiltration. Started making calls. First to Tony Breslin, my former site supervisor who'd been reassigned to a desk job. Then to Dr. Patricia Williams, the structural engineer who'd consulted on the original design. Each conversation confirmed my growing dread. "The new inspection protocols are a joke," Tony said over drinks at Murphy's bar. "They've got kids with tablets checking boxes instead of experienced eyes looking for problems. Half the time, they're not even accessing the critical stress points." Patricia was more diplomatic but equally concerned. "The predictive models are only as good as the data you feed them. If you're not collecting comprehensive field data, you're flying blind." But it was my conversation with Alex Morrison, a former colleague now working for the city's transportation department, that crystallized my fears. "Jeremy, you didn't hear this from me, but there's been unusual seismic activity recorded near the Millbrook Foundation. Not earthquake level, but enough to potentially affect structures with existing vulnerabilities. The city requested updated structural assessments from all contractors 6 weeks ago." My blood ran cold. "Did Rodex respond?" "That's what I'm trying to figure out. The paperwork got routed through some new automated system, and no one seems to know if it was actually reviewed by human eyes. I needed allies, but carefully chosen ones. My first stop was Janet Pierce, the senior project manager who'd somehow survived Marcus's purge. We met at a coffee shop downtown, far from Rodex's offices. "I can't be seen talking to you," she said, sliding into the booth across from me. "Marcus has made it clear that contact with former personnel is discouraged. Janet, I need to know about the Millbrook Bridge inspection status, official channels." She stared into her coffee. "That's the problem, Jeremy. There are no official channels anymore. Everything goes through the AI system, and Marcus has locked down manual overrides. The bridge is scheduled for inspection next month, but it's a Level 2 assessment. Visual, only no load testing. Next month might be too late. The spring thaw is accelerating foundation settlement, and if there's been seismic activity, stop." Janet held up her hand. "I can't hear this. If you're right and I pass this up the chain, I'm admitting the new system is flawed. If you're wrong, I'm undermining company policy based on the opinion of someone who was let go for being outdated." Leaned forward. "Janet, we've worked together for 8 years. Have I ever been wrong about structural integrity?" She was quiet for a long moment. "What do you need?" "Access to the latest inspection reports. Real ones, not the automated summaries. And I need to know who's been assigned to the Millbrook assessment." 2 days later, she slipped me a flash drive in the parking garage. The files confirmed my worst fears. The last comprehensive inspection was 18 months ago, before the harsh winter, before the seismic activity, before the new cracks I'd spotted. The upcoming assessment was assigned to Kevin Walsh, a competent but inexperienced engineer who'd been with the company for 2 years. I called Kevin directly. "Kevin, it's Jeremy Rovens. I know this is awkward, but I need to talk to you about the Millbrook Bridge. Mr. Rovens, I'm not supposed to—" "Kevin, forget the politics for a minute. That bridge has specific vulnerabilities that aren't in the standard inspection protocols. I helped design the original assessment procedures. Can we meet? Unofficially?" He agreed to meet at a diner near the bridge site. What I saw in his eyes when I explained the foundation issues, the expansion joint problems, and the historical stress patterns was recognition. This wasn't about corporate politics. This was about engineering integrity. "What would you do?" he asked finally. "I'd recommend immediate load testing and a full structural analysis. The visual inspection won't catch what needs to be caught." Kevin nodded slowly. "I'll try to get it approved through channels." "Kevin, if channels don't work, document everything. Every concern, every recommendation. Make sure there's a paper trail." Kevin's report landed on Marcus's desk 3 days later. I learned about the aftermath through Tony, who'd heard it from accounting. Marcus had called an emergency meeting with the infrastructure team, using Kevin's excessive recommendations as an example of how the old mindset was infecting the new system. "This is exactly what we're trying to eliminate," Marcus had reportedly said. "Fear-based engineering. Rovens's paranoia is apparently contagious. Kevin was reassigned to a water treatment project the next day. The Millbrook Bridge inspection was given to a contractor who specialized in efficient assessment protocols, code for checking boxes and moving on. I was running out of options and time. The spring construction season was starting, which meant increased traffic loads as commercial vehicles resumed normal routes after winter restrictions. The bridge carried 40,000 vehicles daily, including school buses. I tried going directly to the city's engineering department, but my former industry connections had dried up. Word had gotten out about my termination, and in the insular world of infrastructure engineering, being labeled outdated was career poison. 3 former colleagues declined to take my calls. My attempt to contact the local news was equally futile. The infrastructure reporter had been laid off 6 months earlier, and the general assignment reporters couldn't distinguish between legitimate engineering concerns and disgruntled employee complaints. Desperate, I reached out to Dr. Williams again. "Patricia, I need you to look at something unofficially. The Millbrook Bridge has critical issues that aren't being addressed. Jeremy, I can't get involved in disputes between you and your former employer. The liability implications alone. This isn't about employment disputes. This is about public safety. People are going to get hurt." She was quiet for a long moment. "Send me what you have. I'll look at it, but I can't promise anything beyond a professional opinion." I compiled everything: historical inspection reports, recent traffic data, seismic activity logs, and my own photographic documentation of the deterioration patterns. Patricia's response came 2 days later via encrypted email. "Jeremy, your concerns are valid. The foundation settlement patterns, combined with the expansion joint deterioration, create a significant risk scenario. However, without current load testing data, I can't quantify the timeline to failure. It could be months, or it could be immediate if the right stress conditions align. You need to get this to someone with authority to act." But who? Marcus had effectively isolated me from the decision-making process, and the city trusted Rodex's professional judgment. I was one, man with no official standing, warning about a disaster that might happen. Every day that passed increased the risk, but also made my warning seem less credible. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Dr. Patricia Williams called me on a Tuesday morning, her voice tight with urgency. "Jeremy, I've been thinking about our conversation. There's something you need to know about the Millbrook Bridge that isn't in the standard documentation." "What do you mean?" "I was part of the original design team, but there was a change order late in construction. The foundation depth was reduced by 18 inches to avoid a utility conflict. It was supposed to be temporary, with additional reinforcement added later, but the reinforcement was never added," I finished. "The project was completed on schedule and budget, and the modification was forgotten." "Exactly. It's buried in the change order documentation from 1987. I doubt anyone at Rodex even knows about it." This was the leverage I needed. The foundation wasn't just deteriorating, it was fundamentally compromised from the beginning. I spent the next 2 days in the city archives, pulling original construction documents, change orders, and inspection reports. The paper trail was clear. The Millbrook Bridge had been built with a known structural deficiency that was never corrected. Armed with this information, I approached the situation differently. Instead of trying to work through Rodex or go around them, I went directly to the State Transportation Authority. I requested a meeting with Chief Engineer Lisa Chen, no relation to Marcus, citing concerns about historical documentation gaps in aging infrastructure. Lisa was skeptical but professional. "Mr. Rovens, I appreciate your concerns, but we have established protocols for contractor oversight. If there were legitimate issues with the Millbrook Bridge, they would have been identified through proper channels." I spread the documentation across her conference table. "Ma'am, these are the original construction documents. Note the foundation depth specifications. Now look at the change order from August 1987. The foundation was reduced by 18 inches to avoid a water main conflict." Her expression changed as she studied the papers. "Where's the follow-up documentation for the additional reinforcement?" "There isn't any. The project was completed and signed off without the reinforcement being added. The current inspection Protocols don't account for this deficiency because it's not in the standard structural database. Lisa leaned back in her chair. If what you're showing me is accurate, this bridge has been operating with a compromised foundation for 37 years. Yes, ma'am. And recent seismic activity, combined with accelerated deterioration from harsh winter conditions, has likely pushed it beyond safe operating parameters. She picked up her phone. I'm ordering an immediate independent structural assessment. Emergency protocols. How long do you think we have? I honestly don't know. It could be stable for months, or it could fail during the next heavy traffic period. But given the recent stress indicators, I wouldn't recommend waiting. The state's emergency inspection team arrived at the Millbrook Bridge at 6 a.m. on a Thursday morning. I wasn't officially part of the team, but Lisa Chen had requested my presence as a consulting expert, given my historical knowledge of the structure. The inspection was comprehensive. Ground-penetrating radar, ultrasonic testing, load analysis, and visual examination of every accessible component. What they found confirmed my worst fears and exceeded them. The foundation had settled unevenly, creating stress concentrations that the original design couldn't handle. The reduced foundation depth had created a failure point that was invisible to standard inspection protocols. Most critically, the main support beam showed microscopic fractures that indicated imminent failure. How long? Lisa asked the lead inspector. Days, maybe hours under the right conditions. If a heavy vehicle convoy hit this bridge during peak traffic, the resonance could trigger catastrophic failure. Lisa immediately ordered the bridge closed. Emergency barriers went up at both ends, and traffic was diverted to alternate routes. The closure caused massive delays and inconvenience, but it prevented disaster. The political fallout was swift and brutal. The media descended on the story of a 37-year-old structural deficiency that had been hidden in paperwork and ignored by modern systems. Marcus Chen found himself in the spotlight, trying to explain how his efficient protocols had missed a critical safety issue. I watched his press conference from my living room, feeling no satisfaction as he stumbled through technical explanations. He clearly didn't understand. The AI-driven assessment system flagged no anomalies, he insisted. Our protocols are based on the most current industry standards. A reporter pressed him. But the structural deficiency dates back to the original construction. Wouldn't experienced engineers have known to look for historical documentation issues? Marcus's response was telling. We rely on data-driven analysis, not outdated intuition-based methods. The reporter followed up. Are you saying that the engineer who identified this problem was using outdated methods? I'm saying our current systems are more reliable than individual opinions. That soundbite played on every news channel for the E. Next week, the Millbrook Bridge was demolished and rebuilt over the following 18 months. The state investigation found that 7 other bridges in the region had similar undocumented structural modifications, leading to a comprehensive review of historical construction records. Marcus Chen resigned 3 weeks after the bridge closure, citing philosophical differences with the board regarding risk management strategies. Rodex Technologies paid substantial fines and implemented new protocols that combined automated systems with experienced human oversight, exactly what I'd been advocating for years. I was offered my old job back, along with a promotion to Chief Safety Officer. I declined. At 62, I'd learned that sometimes the most important thing you can do is know when to walk away with your integrity intact. Instead, I started a consulting firm specializing in infrastructure safety audits. My first client was the State Transportation Authority. My second was Rodex Technologies' new management team. Kevin Walsh was promoted to lead the infrastructure division. He calls me regularly for advice, and I'm always happy to share what I've learned. The young engineers today are brilliant, but they need to understand that technology is a tool, not a replacement for experience and judgment. I still drive past where the Millbrook Bridge used to stand. The new structure is beautiful, modern, efficient, and built to last another 100 years. But I remember the lessons of the old bridge, that safety requires vigilance, that experience has value, and that sometimes being called outdated is a badge of honor. The headlines did bury Marcus, professionally speaking, but the real victory wasn't his downfall. It was the 40,000 people who crossed that bridge safely every day, never knowing how close they came to disaster.